I want to start out by playing a little short video. It's like just a couple of minutes, and it's me. I could have just did it on purpose, but video's fun. So I'm gonna play this video, and this is an intriguing thought that will set us off for today. Of what would you do if? Big question. Okay, and so let me just play this, and then we'll get going. One of the most powerful questions that we could ever ask somebody is, what would you do if? What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail and you had all of the resources? That's an amazing question because it removes all of the doubt and all of the circumstances that we allow to block us. It's sort of like when the lotto gets big and it's 600 million and my wife Leslie goes out and buys a ticket. Now we know we're not going to win, but let me tell you, I have the most amazing dreams on those nights. It's very similar to asking this question. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail, money was no object, you had the resources? I want you to ponder that thought, because from that thought, you're going to be prompted to see a vision of the future unencumbered from all of your circumstances that you've allowed to hold you back. It's an amazing question. The thinking and the answers that follow are amazing, and it's one of the first steps when you're chasing your dreams. So one of the things that I love is helping people connect with their dreams, and so who else has bought a lotto ticket when it was really big? You haven't bought a lotto? What are you thinking when you go out and buy the ticket?
Why not? That's what I think. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, but it's amazing because you know you're not going to win, right? I mean, it's 600 million, 300 million. You know what the odds are. But there's something, and most people that buy a ticket, you know you're not going to win. It's not why you're buying it. You're buying it to dream. And it's fun conversation at our house when we go, okay, what would we do if we had whatever? And it's very freeing, because what happens with most people when they dream about 1 inch from their circumstances. And that's where most of America is today. They dream about 1 inch from their circumstances. When we were children, when we were born, anything and everything was possible. There was no limits. You could be Superman, you could be a movie star, you could be, everything was on the table. And then every year that goes by, people, circumstances, friends, and family start telling you what you can't do. And that's what's happened to a lot of people in America and throughout the world, is they've really downsized their dreams based on their circumstances. So this first concept that I want to get us to think about is this word perception. Your perception frames your results. Okay? So tell me what perception means to you. What does perception, that word, mean?
I guess externally is what someone else thinks of you, and internally as well.
So it's what you
think.
What you think.
What you think.
Okay. And is that always correct?
No.
No. We could both watch the same thing, like sports, and you see it one way, your team, you see it one way, and I'm on the other side, on the other team, and I see it the very same play, but I see it totally different. Sally, what does perception mean to you?
Same thing, how I view the world. People have different senses of smell.
Right.
Different, like colored eyes are supposed to see lighter colors of things. Whatever. Everybody's.
How about you, Antonio?
Yeah, it's like how I'm the frame, my own frame that I'm looking at the world.
Okay.
And others.
Okay.
How I think they're looking at me.
So this perception thing is really, really important because it frames your results. So if you're a company, let's say, and so for the last 16 years, what I did was business turnarounds. So I turn around companies. And for giving back to the community, I've always done these kinds of things and invested time into helping people find purpose and work on their careers. But the way I've made money is building companies. So it's really interesting because you could take two people in the same industry, and one person's doing $250,000 a year, and the other one's doing $30 million a year. And how they perceive what's possible is just like night and day. There's another interesting question with this perception. When it comes to revenue or your personal income, I would say that it's a choice. Now, people get mad when I say that, because especially if you're not going to be doing good, because they say, well, I didn't choose this. Well, if at the end of the day you stick with that, then the problem with that is you're going to be right, but there's nothing you can do about it, and that makes you a victim. If you're wrong with your perception, now you have choices. I love being wrong, because every time I'm wrong, I have an opportunity. I have a choice for innovation. So this is something I've learned as an entrepreneur for 33 years. And it's interesting because I've grown some of the fastest growing companies in America. I've made the Inc. 500 several times, and so I've built some fast growing companies. And what I've gotten taught by my mentors is that your perception is everything. And are you willing to change your perception? I want to draw something up here. Let's say this is where you are right here, okay? And let's say over here is your big dream or your destiny. It's kind of like if anything were possible, that's where you want to go, okay? Right where the problem with most people is they're trying to connect the dots from where they are to where they want to go. Well, let me tell you what's about 1 inch from right where you are. There's all these invisible fences of what you can't do that we've allowed to block us. And a lot of us, even though you were born to soar, you were born to be an eagle, these invisible fences have kept you like a chicken in a chicken coop. One of the things about being an entrepreneur is we never try to connect the dots from where we are to where we want to go. Never, because there's too many obstacles over here. We decide where we want to go, and we connect the dots backwards. It's a different way of thinking, but it makes everything possible. And where did I put my clicker? Oh, here it is. So it takes me to this next slide, this word know-how. Do you know what the difference is between somebody who's like a scratch golfer, you know, like a perfect score, and somebody who's a hacker, horrible? Do you know what the difference is between the two? Or do you know what the difference is between someone making $40,000 and somebody making $400,000? Or do you know what the difference is between a company doing $200,000 and one doing $200 million? One knows how, and the other one doesn't. It's pretty simple, huh? One knows how, and the other one doesn't. Now, if the one that didn't know how, if they knew how, they'd have the higher number, right? But they don't know how. Now, if you go ask that person, they'll say, well, this happened, I've got this obstacle, and I got this thing, and I got this other thing. And, in every economy, like right now, the economy is really, really good. But not everybody's doing good. Okay? So for the person that's not doing good, they would say, well, this, that, and they have their reasons, right? But in the same world, somebody who's in the same industry, they're doing really well, they know how. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today is how do we get the know-how? So when we're turning around companies or when we're turning around people, there's things that they want, And the only reason they can't get them is they don't know how. Now the question is, are they willing to learn how? Now if somebody says, well, if I haven't done it, then it's not possible. Because if it was possible, I'd have the results. Then that person usually, now this is stepping on some toes, right? But that person is usually, it's pride and ego that keeps them from learning how. So one of the things I've learned with everything that we do, it's about know-how, okay? And I'll give you an example. We had a guy, and some of you know him, but we had a guy, Tahir, okay? He's a physician and an anesthesiologist that was living in Pakistan, and he's a Christian. And if in Pakistan, if you switch religions over there, it's not a good deal. I mean, it's off with your head. And so they live in fear because, they're in their Christianity, it's very much underground, and if somebody finds out, the villagers come, drag you out, and literally they beat you and they'll chop off your head right there, and it happens all the time. Okay, and so anyway, he has this story, and he comes to America, and he's living with his parents, which have a different religion than he does, and they're Muslim, and he's Christian, and if they knew, it wouldn't be good news, you know. And so anyway, he's out. So he's a physician and an anesthesiologist in Pakistan. He comes to America, has no driver's license, has his medical background. All that means nothing. He's nobody here. Has no car, and he's really like roaming the streets looking for jobs. Just can imagine if you go to a new country, you don't understand the whole system. And, you don't have any money, and he's just miserable in his situation. So somehow he found out about Cana, and he came in here one day. We were having an event or something, and Scott and I, and Scott's one of our co-founders, and we were serving him lunch. And we got to hear his story, and we started spending a little time with him, and we'd meet him about once a week and just, find out what's going on in his life and what's his strategy. And the problem is he didn't have know-how, okay? And he was this poor guy would get a job interview someplace like in City of Industry that's not just right next door, and then he'd take 14 buses and he doesn't know where the heck he's going. It was just a disaster, his whole thing. And then he'd get there and he'd find out that he's not even qualified for it. And this is what's going on every day. Guess how big his self-esteem was? Yeah, because I only know, I've never been a woman, so I can't tell you, what a woman thinks, But as a man, when we don't have our income, our jobs are so tied to our self-esteems. And it just is. And it's not healthy, but it's kind of, we're supposed to be providers. And when you're not providing, you just don't, it's hard to feel good about yourself. And it's a battle. So he was feeling low, and so we gave him a strategy. And he was kind of like, I don't know about this strategy. And I'm going, Tahir, why are you questioning me? I know something you don't know, and I've done this 1,000 times. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been making myself available, whether it's one person one-on-one, or we're doing a big conference, or we have 6 people in the room, or 5 people in the room like we do today. Let me tell you what happened next. I'm going to talk about results. This guy went from not having anybody respond to we had CEOs of companies reaching out to him from all over, okay, driving here to pick him up. We had people from Irvine coming. Can you imagine a CEO of some company? They don't even know this guy. And they're driving here to pick him up and take him back to their companies. We had people give him money. We had people sending him money. We had one lady just give him $1,000. So today, he's working. When he finally got his job, It was a Friday, and he was supposed to start on Monday, and he texted me, and he goes, I don't know how I'm going to, and his job's out in Irvine, and he's out here, and he's like, I don't know how I'm going to get there. On Friday, somebody gave him a 2016 Honda of some sort, looked like brand new. And later, and then there was the distance thing, to driving. Then later, somebody else that made the drive out here got him a place to stay. Miraculous. Now, this is an amazing story to hear. And he didn't know how, but he learned. What we did is we gave him a strategy. Now, the strategy we used with him, we didn't have a strategy special for him, but we used a strategy that we use all the time, and using LinkedIn when we're launching companies. And so we know something, we have some know-how, and that's what we taught him. But I tell you this, he doubted the know-how. Even when he was in the middle of some of the stuff, he doubted it, and he didn't have the know-how. So if you're willing, if you've exhausted what you know, and you're willing to try something else or think about it, that's what we're here to talk about. If not, you get stuck with the same results. We're going to cover 5 truths today, and we can have discussion. If you have questions, speak up. But I want to talk about some stuff, truth number 1, some stuff that have changed. There are 6 major workforce disruptions that have gone on, and a lot of people aren't aware of their impact on the job market, or if you're running a company, on our economy. So I want to go through and discuss some of these things and really hear from you how it's affected you, okay? The first one is the rise of purpose. I'm 57 years old. I'm a boomer. When we were growing up, if I told my father, Dad, I'm going to get rid of my job. I really need to do something with purpose. I want to do something with that. I know what he would have told me. Your job isn't to have purpose. Your job is to go earn a living and pay for your family. And, that's the lecture I know I would have gotten, and you're not supposed to like your work. That was just kind of the attitude, because his parents came out of the Depression. And, so they had a perception of how the world should work, okay? So the boomers came along, and in our group, we all wanted to do well, and so we thought, well, you know what, we're just going to work 80 hours a week, and then someday, we'll retire and we'll have purpose, but in the and we're going to do all this at a later date. And so a lot of our kids, the Xers, said, oh, I don't want to live like my parents, and this is what goes on with generations. One generation kind of sets up the other. But all of a sudden, and I think it started with the Xers. The Xers, if you're 39 to 52, you're an Xer, and if you're a millennial, you're 18. It's funny, we think of millennials as kids. Well, they can go up to 38 now. And we think of Xers still as that one group. Well, at the top end, they're 52. So pretty soon, Gen Z, the new group, are going to be saying, oh, we can't work with these millennials. They don't know how to operate the phones right. They don't understand technology. Everything keeps shifting. But all of a sudden, people want to do something that matters. And what's really interesting is the almighty dollar is not the most important thing anymore. People feel as though they were meant to do something that matters, and they're very frustrated when they don't know what that is. It's kind of like we want the workplace to conform to some of our desires that we'll talk about, which is really this is a new thing that's going on, and so it's important to know. Corporate America wasn't built around purpose for you. It was built around purpose for revenue and profitability. So there's this tension there, but this is a major shift that's going on everywhere. And in the Gallup polls, this ranks high with all generations right now. Here's the second one. All of us want a dream job. What I mean by a dream job is you get to define it. It's something you really want to do, and it's around your interests, it's around your gifts, it's like made for you. Now, it's going to be different for everybody, but we all are looking for this dream job thing, okay? The second thing is we want a dream income. Now, a dream income's different, it's the same thing. It's totally different for everybody. So, it might be one person, they want to live in a cool little bungalow someplace, and they're not looking for fancy, but they want to do something that matters, and they don't want to have lack. They don't want to make less than enough. They want to make more than. They'd like to be able to put some money away. They'd like to be able to live debt-free. They like to be generous and help other people. I mean, we're not talking, most people, their dream job, dream income isn't, I got to go live in Beverly Hills. That's not what most people are thinking. But what's changed is the path to get there has totally changed. For my generation, you worked at one company and they took care of you. Okay, does that look anything like what's out there today? No. So this path to this dream job, dream income that everybody wants is changed. It's shifted, and people don't get that. 70 to 80%, it's someplace between those, depending on what poll you look at, of Americans they loathe what they do. To me, and this is a number I've been tracking since my first company, because I was in staffing, my first company, and so I've always been around whatever we're doing, kind of around careers and things like that. And I've always thought it was kind of a messed up number. I mean, how is it that the majority, you can't please everybody, right? There's some people that they're going to, if they won the lottery, they're going to complain because they got to pay taxes. There's the complainers. But when the majority of Americans really hate their jobs, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And this is what people are wanting, and even though the economy is red hot, it's not red hot for everybody. That's what's interesting, and just because everybody's working or, the high, it doesn't mean everybody's got a great job. See, and so there's a lot of people that are out there and going, well, wait a minute. If everybody's doing well, how about me? Okay. The American dream. What's the American dream? It's different for everybody. But we all want a nice place to live. We want a place where we could do life with friends and family and, eat and, have people over and enjoy life. And we want to be debt-free. Most of us would like to be free from the pressure of debt, and we like to be able to retire, and we like to be able to give back and do different things. But the path, how many feel like the American dream, and you got to define it on your own terms, is kind of a little elusive right now? Is it hard to find? This is what, it's like, if the economy is so great, and it is good, all the numbers say, but can we still have the American dream? Or do we have to totally change what that is? Is there a new reality where the American dream, forget about owning a home, forget about being out of debt, forget about, is that it? It's really not, but we have to adjust. We have to adjust. The path there has changed. So this is a major workforce disruption because most of us are going to get our income, whatever wealth or whatever it is that we have, is coming from our jobs. There's only two places where the money comes from, right? It comes from work, or it comes from some kind of investments. And that could have been, an inheritance, or maybe you've been invested. There's two different, systems in place for income. And the very wealthy don't make their money from working because they don't want to pay what they call the sucker's tax. That's the way they look at it. They make their money from investments where we pay a small tax. And that's why the rich keep on getting richer, because they understand compounded interest very well, and they've learned to milk that system. So gig economy is interesting. What's happened is, I'm going to read a couple stats, but the employers, companies, have fallen in love with this idea of getting contract, freelance workers and temp, okay? Why is it beneficial to a company not to have a full-time employee? They don't have to pay health. So it's it's really interesting right now. Amazon's on this thing where they have all these ads like, do you want to be an entrepreneur? Sounds good, right? We'll set you up in a delivery business, and they're going to finance the trucks that you're going to have, and this is so we could all get our groceries in 10 minutes. That's okay. And you can make up to $300,000. That's what they say. Well, I got news for them. Nobody starts a company to be capped at 300,000. But the other thing that what they're really doing is they're passing all the cost to people that think that they're going to be entrepreneurs, and they don't realize, you can be, if you have an in-demand skill set, and it's probably digital, and you're a freelancer, okay? And now you can work from wherever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. And it's wonderful, unless you don't have customers. And then you have the same thing that a homeless guy has. Think about it. They can live anywhere they want, they can, but no income. And so it's not such a great deal if you're not making money. It sounds good, okay? So the gig economy is 1.4 trillion with a T. That's big, okay? There's 57 million freelancers right now. That's a lot, okay? 50% of millennials, so we have lots of millennials because it's 18 to 38. 50% of millennials are freelancers. Because think about like the whole Uber world. And so it's part-time, contract, and freelance. So and by 2020, so that's not too far off now, right? 43% of the U.S. workforce are going to be freelancers. Now, there's, in the digital world, if I want somebody to create content for me, there's sites I can go to that will hook me up. They're an in-between site, or if I want something in the creative area with, websites or graphic art or whatever. There's this whole army of workers that you can go to, and who's paying all their taxes and all their health care? Who's paying for that? If I'm a business consumer buying am I paying for it? No. And because everybody's fighting, for this project, how is the price going up or is it going down? Can you distinguish somebody who's really talented from somebody who's not? It's really hard to. It's really, really hard to. So the gig economy has created even challenges for businesses, because now there's all these other people out there that are competing. And it's kind of like, what's the difference between an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, a freelancer? Well, they can all be the same thing if they're not making revenue. That's the one distinguishing factor. You're either making revenue, you either know how, or you don't know how. And if you don't know how, it's no big deal unless you're not willing to learn how. As long as you're willing to learn how, you're just navigating the new path. And one of the things I've learned as an entrepreneur is the landscape never stops shifting. I remember, probably 15 years ago in my world, And so we were in our company, which is a business turnaround. We also have all the people that are like in an agency. So because we're doing marketing for companies, and so we were masters at TV, broadcast, radio. We were buying a lot of it. When everything went digital, our world changed, and we didn't like it. I didn't want to have to learn new stuff, but I didn't want to end up like Sears. So you either adjust or you go out of business. So this gig economy has changed a lot of things. There's fewer wonderful full-time jobs. There's fewer wonderful full-time jobs, okay? So we have to change our game. Now, every single one of these that I'm going through, there's an opportunity if you'll change your perception. If you don't change your perception, you'll stay stuck. That's what I'm getting at. Because the people that change their perception that know how do really well. So this is about changing our perceptions so that we can do really well in the areas that you want to do well. Okay? Generational cultural bias. If I was out looking for a job right now at 57 years old, and I have a lot of experience, but the people interviewing me, they'd probably be really nice, There was a movie with Robert De Niro where he goes and gets a job. Did you see? Well, do you remember the name of that one? The Intern, yeah. And so he's a really knowledgeable guy, but it's with all the younger millennials and all this stuff, and so they would be really nice to me, but they're like, what kind of phone does he have? Is that the jitterbug phone? We'd have to go back to Microsoft Office with this guy. He doesn't understand all the new, tools that, so there's generational cultural bias. Let me tell you, Gen Z, they're looking at the millennials, as soon as you start, getting the age for settling down and maybe having some kids or whatever, your priorities shift. And the younger generation kind of look at you like at the old folks. So there's this generational culture bias that exists. It's discrimination, but it's very silent. And I can just tell you, if you're a millennial team, you don't want some old fart working with you and messing it up. Now you won't say anything. You're really polite because we're really big with political correctness, right? We don't say, but that doesn't change behavior. So there's and I still hear from people in my generation that are making fun. I still, just the other day we were in some meeting and somebody's referring to millennials like they're 18. And I'm like, dude, they're up to 38 now. Like you have a warped view, or some people still calling the Xers like they're kids. They're 52. So there's this generational cultural bias. Now, I'm not going to get political, but I just want to go back to the beginning of the elections. When no one knew who Bernie was, he was unknown. Okay, at the very beginning, and I saw he was running, I told my kid, Brandon, no one's going to vote for that old codger. How wrong was I? And what's interesting, did the old people love him? Maybe, but who loved him? Yeah. Whoever he hired, to do, buyer personas, to understand target audience and segments, understood, hey, there's a whole group out there, they don't vote, but they're loud. But if you go offer them this, and the other thing, and that's what happens in politics, you got to go find the group. A lot of the groups are taken, right? So you got to go to the groups that aren't taken, and then you got to figure out a way to get them. And so, think about it. If you're a millennial and if you're a millennial, you have plenty of what? College debt. And if somebody, and the people were telling you, my generation was saying, hey, don't worry about, you're 150, don't worry, it's going to pay off. Has it paid off? No, I turn around colleges, I know. It doesn't pay off, you know. And so if somebody said, hey, we're going to get rid of that, I mean, that sounds pretty good, right? And, we might make college free. That sounds pretty good, okay? But I just want to go back to generational cultural bias. That we all think different of our generations. And it's the same repeating. I mean, we used to be hippies. And we had long hair, and we came out of Vietnam, and we were like the rebels, and we were protesting everything. And, you know, I think our guy, I'm at the young end of the boomers, but, you know, all you have to do is, you know, dial back to All in the Family, and you can see what was going on. Remember Archie Bunker? You go back to there, and you can see what was going on. And, every new generation, we think this. But this is the big thing that has created obstacles in the workplace. So if you're looking, this is a big thing. This is a new thing. This one, it's aging out at 40. It is crazy to think that you can age out at 40. But I want to read you something. This is from a survey that just got released. So, even in the red hot tech industry, hottest industry out there, there's shortages. They can't get enough people in certain, areas of tech, developers. There's just red hot. A whopping 43% of U.S. tech workers surveyed by Indeed, the job search site, said they're worried about losing their position because of how old they are. So in the most demand areas, people turning 40 are worried about being too old. Now, we didn't have that but right now at 40, they're starting to worry about it. 18% say they're concerned about it all the time. So this is really starting to hit people. And I'm not going to ask the ladies, but if the closer you get to this, or if you've gone over the bridge here at 40, this is a big reason why people don't want to hire you. Now, here's what's interesting. As a CEO, if I show up at the door, even for a millennial company, they love me. Because this is wisdom. This gray, it's wisdom. Now, they don't want to hire me,
Right.
but they'll pay me 5 times as much for my wisdom? Yeah, that's how I make money. I work with young tech companies, and they're all at, the top incubators, or, they come out of all the same places, and you see the old guys walking around, and we're the investors, or we're the top consultants that are guiding them. All the VC, all the money it's not from 20-year-olds, it's from guys my age. And they want the wisdom, but they wouldn't hire me. If I said, hey, how about hiring me? I'd like to be your, I don't think you fit in, Gerald. So these are some of the big factors that are just changing everything.